Educational, radio, or television programming purpose, including payment of dues or assessments to memberships, organizations who represent the interests of stations. The purchase, acquisition, or maintenance of broadcast facilities and real property used with such facilities, and the procurement of regional or national program distribution services that make programs available for broadcast at times chosen by the stations. Existing provisions of the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967 would require stations to keep records regarding the application of these funds and would permit the corporation and the General Accounting Office to audit and examine such records. In addition to providing for the long-term financing of the corporation and the entire public broadcast system, the bill would update the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967 by including within its scope new technologies such as cable and communications satellites, which may provide additional methods for disseminating educational radio and television programming to the public. The bill would permit stations to use the federal funds distributed to them by the corporation for the development of non-broadcast technologies and would also authorize the corporation to conduct research demonstrations or training in the use of such technologies for disseminating educational programming. The Office of Management and Budget advises that the enactment of proposed legislation would be in accord with the program of the President. Mr. President, I am today introducing the Child Nutrition Act of 1975, a bill to establish a universal food service and nutrition education program for children. This is a truly comprehensive bill. It would provide that every child attending a school or child care program would receive at least one nutritious meal a day without cost. The same child who is now entitled to free transportation to school, free textbooks, and free instruction in all manner of subjects would be likewise entitled to a free lunch at school. At this time, the President is proposing a program of block grants for financing school and child feeding programs for only those children whose family incomes are below the poverty level. This, of course, means that federal financial assistance for school lunches now purchased by those children whose families have incomes above the poverty level would be completely terminated. It is estimated that this alone would probably result in 7 to 10 million paying students dropping out of the school lunch program. The importance of good nutrition can be seen in the impact it has on the ability of students to learn, to maintain better health, to reduce absenteeism, and lower the dropout rate. There is little question that the teaching of the principles of good nutrition has been largely neglected in the nation's educational system. We find poor diets or less than adequate diets prevalent in all segments of the population, regardless of income. To correct the situation, there is an urgent need to incorporate nutrition education in various phases of the educational system. It need not be a separate course of instruction, but can be given appropriate attention in hygiene class, the home economics class, geography class, or physical education. Clearly, it is time that Congress should express national leadership in stimulating and encouraging a positive program to eliminate one major cause of poor nutrition, simple ignorance of the basic principles of good nutrition and its importance to good health. The bill I am introducing today takes the long overdue full stride to establish a truly universal school food and nutrition education program. Among its chief provisions, this bill would provide for pilot programs in at least 10 school systems during the first year the act was in effect. Establish a National Advisory Council on Child Nutrition composed of 19 members from all phases of the school nutrition field, including state and local program administrators, parents and students, and representatives of the Department of Agriculture. Provide $200 million per year for agricultural commodity purchases to be distributed through the program, and $100 million for school fund service equipment and facilities. Provide the establishment of child nutrition education services within each state education agency as part of a full-scale nationwide program to teach our children about proper food and nutrition. Provide the mechanics for the universal free lunch program itself in all public schools and to the greatest extent possible in the private, nonprofit schools as well. I intend to make sure that we do not accept the administration's proposed full retreat from responsibility. Beyond preventing the administration from wrecking the school lunch program, I plan to press again for consideration of my Universal Child Nutrition Act in this session of Congress. If President Ford wants to streamline some of these programs, he can do it by joining with me in urgent, prompt enactment of my universal program. Passage of my bill would eliminate once and for all the degrading procedure of singling out certain children as being eligible for a free lunch and certain other children as eligible for a reduced price lunch, while still others, because of higher family incomes, are required to pay the full price. In this procedure, we are in effect requiring school officials to perform a welfare function when their real business is education, and the paperwork and administrative costs of sending out application forms to all parents and processing and evaluating the applications has become enormously time-consuming and expensive. The first major purpose of the bill, therefore, is to provide that all children have access to the food they need for good nutrition and good health. The second purpose of the bill is to provide for the establishment of a sound nutrition education program in all of our schools across the country. It has been well established by health and nutritional experts from throughout the country, based upon scientific studies and surveys, that income alone is no guarantee of good child nutrition. Many school children from middle-class families who would benefit from the program look down on it because it is sometimes described as being for the poor. The administration's block grant proposal would encourage looking at this program as one strictly for children from poverty circumstances. However, in a vast majority of schools, the poverty program alone would not support a viable school food service operation. With meal prices soaring to 80 cents and higher, pupil participation would be forced down dramatically. The unit cost of production would rise as the volume of meals declined. Consequently, many school food service programs would close completely, depriving even the poverty child of school meals. It is tragic that just at the time of this nation's dawning comprehension of the relationship between nutrition and health, just at the time of documented proof of the relationship between nutrition and learning, just at the time of growing public acceptance of food and nutrition as a contributing factor to the quality of life, the administration proposes to turn its back on 30 years of progress in child nutrition. Okay, Carmen.
I am for defense, Mr. Johnstone, Johnstone,
Court. I'm the witness.
And the plaintiff, Mr. Condon, Condon.
Okay, and we're starting on line 22, question by Mr. Johnstone.
Where did you see him?
Long Long Beach City Jail.
And at that time, the city jail was located in the city hall, is that correct?
Yes, the old City Hall building.
And this was sometime in August of 1959.
Yes.
Did anybody go with you then when you went to see him there?
No, I don't believe so.
Would you describe where you visited him?
He was in a little cell in the center of the room, and I talked to him through the bars.
Now, there were always bars separating you from him at that time, is that correct?
Yes.
When did you next see him?
Well, I visited him quite a few times at the county jail before he was moved out to San Dimas.
Well, to your knowledge, did he appear in court here in Long Beach on some charges that had been brought against him?
Yes.
And were you present at the time he appeared in court?
Yes.
And as a result of the appearance in court, was he sent to a jail someplace?
Yes.
And where was that?
He was sent to San Dimas.
Do you remember when that occurred?
No, I don't remember exactly the exact time of that.
Sometime in the fall of 1959?
Yes.
At any time prior to the time that he was sent to San Dimas, were you ever able to be alone with Mr. Morrison?
No.
Do you recall how long he was at San Dimas?
I know he was there for quite a few months. I don't know whether he was there the full 6 months of his sentence or not.
Did you hear the judge pronounce a 6-month sentence for him to serve?
Yes.
Did you visit him at San Dimas?
Yes.
Describe the facilities in which you visited him at San Dimas.
It was the front of the city jail building itself in San Dimas.
How many times did you go to see him?
I don't think I missed a visiting day in the time that he was out there. I might have missed one or two.
You say visiting day. Was there more than one visiting day each week?
I believe you were allowed Saturday and Sunday. I am not sure.
Now, you don't recall when he was released from jail?
Yes, February 4, 1960.
Did he return to the home in which you were residing after he got out of jail?
Yes.
And where were you living when he was released?
654 Magnolia.
Is that just a one-family home?
Yes.
And was there anyone living in that house with you when Mr. Morrison moved back?
Yes, my mother was there.
And what is her name?
Norma H. Wade.
Anybody else?
No, nobody at present.
At that time?
No.
Your daughter, was she living with you?
Yes.
Is that Terry?
Terry and Norma Lee. And Norma Lee is not included in all this.
Who is not included?
You have a child by a previous marriage?
Yes.
Norma Lee is a child by a previous marriage?
Yes.
How old is she?
15 and a half.
Now, when Mr. Morrison was released and returned to the home, did he find work?
Yes.
And how long did he work?
He worked approximately 2 years for Goodwill Industries.
During that period of that 2 years, how did Mr. Morrison behave toward you? In other words, how did he treat you?
Good. He always did when he was home.
Did he remain at home for the 2 years following his release in 1960?
Yes, because he got off probation June of the same year that he left town in 1960. And in 1962, he was released from probation.
Then, as a part of the sentence that the court gave him in the fall of 1959, he was to serve a number of years on probation?
Yes, 5 years.
And is it your testimony that, to your knowledge, he was released from probation in 1962?
Yes,
Do you recall the month?
I believe it was June.
Haven't you got the criminal record?
I don't, Your Honor. Well, did he leave your house in 1962?
Yes.
Would you describe to the court the circumstances of his leaving?
He left and was gone. And then all of a sudden I found he was married to somebody else. Had married somebody else in Las Vegas.
Now, how did you find this out?
By so many people telling me that he had went away on a honeymoon. And then I began checking myself.
Did you look at records, official records, to find out he had been married?
Yes.
What was the name of the individual that he had married?
Phyllis Unger Ford.
Had you known her before?
No.
Did you ever meet her?
Yes.
And when did you first meet her?
August 14th of that same year.
That is 1962?
Yes.
And where did you meet her?
In her home.
And was Mr. Morrison with her at that time?
Yes.
Did you talk to him about his marriage to Miss Ungerford?
Yes.
Did he say he had entered a marriage ceremony with her?
Yes.
And did he say that he had taken a trip with her?
Yes.
Now, did you and Mr. Morrison resume marital relationships after August 14, 1962?
Yes.
When was that?
He left the house the same night. He came home with me on August 14th.
He left the Ungerford home and came to your home?
Yes.
Now, how long did he stay with you?
Until May of 1963.
Now, when was your youngest daughter born?
June of 1960. June 2, 1960.
And where was she born?
Long Beach, Seaside Hospital in Long Beach.
Now, was Mr. Morrison living with you at that time?
Yes.
Did he go with you to the hospital?
Yes.
And as far as you know, was he at the hospital when the child was born?
Yes.
What was the youngest child's name?
Linda Lee Morrison.
Now, during or shortly after the birth of the child, did you send out announcements of her birth?
Yes.
I show you what appears to be a birth announcement.
That will be cross-complainant 1 for identification.
Cross complainants 1 for identification, and it bears the signature of Jovetta Morrison and Lee Morrison.
Uh-huh.
It refers to the birth of Linda Lee Morrison, Seaside Hospital, June 2nd, 1962, 3:42 p.m.
Uh-huh.
Now, does this bear the signature of your husband?
Yes.
The written words Lee Morrison are in his handwriting?
Yes.
Is that the signature that he normally used?
Yes.
Does your signature appear on that?
Yes, mine is above his.
I'd like to offer this, Your Honor, as cross complainants first in order.
Very well, it will be received. There were similar pictures sent to others.
Yes, there were quite a few pictures sent out at that time.
That is, did you send similar pictures to this bearing his signature to others?
You mean pictures like that one in particular?
Bearing his signature.
Yes, they were all signed that way.
And you sent them to a number of people?
Yes.
Very well.
Now, after the child was born, I presume you returned to the home of 654 Magnolia, is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you bring the child with you?
Yes.
Was Mr. Morrison living in the same home at that time?
Yes.
Did you both, you and he, consent to having that child in the house?
Yes.
Was the child raised with Terry as knowing Terry as her sister?
Yes.
And has that always been the case up to the present time?
Up to the present time, yes.
Now, prior to the time of filing the divorce complaint, has Mr. Morrison ever told anyone, to your knowledge, that he denied Linda being his child?
Well, yes, in 1962, when Phyllis Ungerford entered the picture, he did quite fluently.
Did he say this in your presence?
Well, no, not in my presence. But I heard it from other people who were working at Goodwill at the time.
As far as you yourself heard, though, that is, from him, had he never denied the child?
No.
During the time that the child was growing up and he was living in the home, had the child learned to speak words?
Yes.
And how did she refer to Mr. Morrison?
Daddy.
And did he ever, at any time in your presence or in the presence of anybody else, to your knowledge, that is, within your hearing, tell her not to call him Daddy?
No, not to my knowledge.
Had he introduced the child or shown the child to other people and said, "This is my daughter Linda"?
Yes.
Had you heard this many times?
Yes, many times.
Did he, from his earnings, contribute to the support of Linda as well as that of Terry?
Well, if the $10 a week would be included for both kids, yes.
Prior to the date of this last separation from him?
No.
Did he contribute to the support of 2 children?
No. Well, yes, in 1962, he did leave me $50.
No, between June 2nd of 1960, when the child was born, and the time that you and he separated, did he contribute to the feeding and clothing and housing of the child?
Yes.
You didn't have to go out and earn the money or acquire the money to support Linda?
No.
Did he pay the hospital bill?
No, it has not been paid. It was underneath the county at that time. It was through the county hospital.
Other than that expense, has he either contributed to or paid the normal expenses of Linda up until the time he separated from you?
Yes.
Now, relative to his treatment of you, I believe you stated that he left you a second time in May of 1963. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And has he returned to the home since that time?
No.
To your knowledge, is he living with anyone else at the present?
Not at the present. I would not know. I could only go back to the beginning.
Well, shortly after he left your home, do you know whether he was residing with somebody else?
Yes.
And was that a lady?
Yes.
Now, did he leave the home with your permission or consent?
He told me he was leaving to get, at first he told me he was in trouble with the law and that was the reason he was leaving. Now then I asked him for the truth and he told me he was leaving and he was going to the Volunteers of America and live in their bunkhouse, and then finally he told me the other, the real one.
Now, what was the last thing that he said to you?
He said that he was in love with this other woman and he was going to her.
Did he tell you her name?
No.
Now, after he told you that he was in love with the other person and was going to her, did he offer at any time to return to the house?
No.
Have you ever discussed whether or not he could return to the home with you?
Yes, the last time I saw him.
And did he refuse to return?
He said he was not interested.
Has he told you that he didn't love you?
Yes.
What effect did this conduct on his part have upon you? How did it make you feel?
Well, very nervous, very upset.
Did it cause you mental suffering?
Yes.
A few more questions. Have you and Mr. Morrison acquired any personal property since you have been married?
No.
Do you have anything at the present time that was obtained from your earnings or his earnings or both of your earnings during the time that you were married?
Well, he obtained the car from his earnings, I guess you would say.
What kind of a car is it?
57 Pontiac.
Is there anything else that the two of you own?
But that he signed the pink slip over to me quite a few months before he left home.
So that automobile is in your possession?
Yes.
Are there any encumbrances against it?
No, nothing.
Do you rent the home at 654 Magnolia?
653.
I am sorry, 653.
Yes.
And how much rent do you pay?
$100 a month.
Does anybody live with you there?
Yes.
And who is that?
A boarder, my mother and 3 kids.
Your mother is Norma Wade?
Yes.
What is the name of the boarder?
Joe Lovejoy.
And your 3 children?
Uh-huh.
Are you employed at the present time, Mrs. Morrison?
No, I am not.
Have you in the past maintained gainful employment?
Yes.
What have you done?
Up until January this year, I was working as a waitress.
What does it normally cost you to feed the family aside from your mother and your oldest daughter? What does it cost you for food a month?
Oh, average grocery bill for all of us. I have never cut it down. For just the,
Well, how much do you need to take care of the family? That is, without going into a lot of detail, what does it cost you to support the family that you have?
oh, I would say about $10 to $15 a week on groceries alone.
Well, I am not interested in groceries alone, the whole business. And let's not worry about needles and pins. Have you gone into that at all, Mr. Johnstone?
No, Your Honor. We offered a proof at the first hearing, and I am sorry, I wasn't under the impression we would have to go through it.
What do you mean is you can lump it together without going into, as I said, needles and pins?
I don't think that the picture has changed any since the order to show cause, at least not materially. And at this time, it was $506 a month. The order to show cause was filed, the affidavit in support of it, August 16, 1963.
Is that what you need?
Yes.
Court,
I am the witness.
for the plaintiff, Mr. Bochesky, B-E-A-U-C-H-E-S-A-B.
Okay, and let's turn the page. So we're on page 3. Bochesky. And let's start on page 3 there at the top.
Would you state your name, please, and spell your last name for the record?
Patrick Sinnott, S-I-N-N-O-T-T.
Your occupation, sir?
I'm a police officer for the city of Modesto. I'm currently assigned to the Stanislaus County Drug Enforcement Unit.
All right, and drawing your attention to the date, Agent Sinat, of December 28, 1979, sometime about 11:25 in the morning, did you serve a search warrant at 1416 West Rumble Road in Modesto, California?
Yes, I did.
Is that in Stanislaus County?
Yes, it is.
I have a search warrant with accompanying return on the search warrant affidavit that I'd like to have marked as People's Number 1 for identification.
All right.
Agent Sino, show you People's Number 1 for identification.
Could I take a look at that?
I'm sorry, sure. Showing you People's 1 for identification, can you examine that and tell us if there appears to be contained within that exhibit a true and accurate copy of the search warrant that you served on December 28th at the residence you just indicated?
Yes, it is.
All right. And when you arrived at the residence, can you tell us what happened?
I went to the front door. I was accompanied by Agent Welch, and I rang the doorbell, waited about a minute. There was no answer. I rang the doorbell again, and at that time, Mr. Strickler came to the door and opened it.
By Mr. Strickler, do you see him in court today?
Yes, he's sitting next to Mr. Lamb.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
All right.
After he answered the door, that is, Mr. Strickler, can you tell us what happened?
I showed him my badge. I told him I was a policeman, and I told him I had a search warrant for the house. And we then made entry into the house and secured it.
Did you?
Your Honor, at this time I would request the right to voir dire with regard to the procedures that occurred and their legality.
Motion will be denied. You can do that on
Did you read the search warrant once you entered the home?
Yes.
Then Then yourself and the other agents began conducting a search?
Yes.
I'm going to object. That's leading and suggestive.
Sustained.
What happened after you read the search warrant?
We started a search of the house.
Did you find anything in the house?
Yes.
Have you brought any of those items that you found to court with you today?
Yes.
At this point, Your Honor, I would move to quash any of the materials produced on the grounds of the inadequacy of the accompanying document and the invalidity of the search warrant.
Agent Sanat, stop what you're doing at this time. Are you offering people's number 1 into evidence at this point?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Be received.
Agent Stenot,
Mr. G, excuse me, there's been a motion to quash, and I'm reading the search warrant. All right, I'll hear argument in support of your motion to quash, Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Your Honor. That document, as far as I'm able to determine, is supported only by the affidavit in support of application of search warrant of one Russell L. Cerna, which I believe is a portion of that exhibit. The essential parts that I would address myself to, Your Honor, are at page 1, beginning with line 24, and primarily through page 2 at line 20. Initially, the assertion is made, I have received information from a confidential, reliable informant, whom I shall refer to as X. This affidavit I might submit in the form here is absent of the essential information and does not state that Officer Cerna knows of this information of his own knowledge. For instance, this confidential, reliable informant has provided agents. He does not state it has been provided to him. He states a conclusion, and it would have to be unquestionably also based on hearsay, since he does not state at all that he has had that information furnished him by this alleged confidential, reliable informant. And the entire supporting information is defective for that reason.
Anything else on that motion?
On the insufficiency of the declaration of the affidavit, Your Honor,
Motion to quash is denied. You may proceed.
incidentally, it is my intention also, Your Honor, to make a motion pursuant to Penal Code 1042,
Evidence code, which?
1042, Your Honor. It's my understanding that they are refusing to divulge the alleged reliable informant that is the subject matter there also.
You may proceed.
okay, Agent Stenot, I believe when we left off a few moments ago, you had an envelope with you?
Yes.
Could you open the contents of that, please?
It's sealed.
It's in a sealed condition?
Yes.
Has this been marked yet?
No.
Why don't you have the envelope marked?
All right, we'll have that marked number 2.
People's 2 for identification then.
Did you want to look at it, Mr. Lamb?
Sure, thank you very much.